When it comes to Elden Ring, my skill is a mixed bag. And sometimes I feel the need to remind myself that I am more experienced than I think. So after a bit of planning and trialing, I reckoned that with enough skillful play and practice, even an albeit experienced casual like me could beat Elden Ring in less than 2 hours. And as the existence of this video would imply, I eventually did. The whole thing took a few attempts across a total of 6 days, probably. Rather than consult real resources on speedrunning, I drafted up my own course through the game that I thought would be pretty fast, which I lovingly dub the simple plan. It got a bit modified over time, as you'll see, but this was the starting framework I went in with for what would be the first attempt that is relevant to this video. Let's see how that played out. I didn't go into this run very confident for reasons I'd rather not elaborate upon. This technically wasn't the first overall attempt, but it was the first I'm counting for the purposes of this video, as I had said before. The iteration of the plan used in that one was a lot shittier. I start the run by throwing myself off the cliff since it's faster than getting killed by the Jerker, and emerge from the graveyard in Limgrave with a gleam in my eye, an optimistic smile. Even so, like every run, this one begins with the time for another attempt walk of shame. Past the Sentinel and straight to Melina. I guess this is what it's like to be a speedrunner. Thank fucking god I don't care about doing this any faster. I tried to equip Torrent while stuck in the stand-up animation to save time, but I lack that kind of coordination. I couldn't even tell you why I was caring about these kinds of minor time saves in the first place. Just over here we get to cross off another step. Wow, what an insane pace. This flail, surprisingly, is the best tool for killing gigantic geriatric dragons quickly. On the way over to Aguil Lake South, I take a brief detour and scramble up this mountain for a severed bird foot. How convenient to just have that one lying around. After grabbing the grace for later, I decide to instead jump down these bafflingly positioned gravestones, honoring fallen soldiers from the parallel dimension where people walk on the fucking walls. I forego all stealth at Fort Height, stealing this seed and drifting past literal Goliath from the Bible to mad dash up this rickety fortress. I quit out after grabbing the medallion because a single half-naked man carrying 400 improvised explosives saw me and is now currently climbing the ladder toward my position. From there, it's a less than eventful ride over to the third church, where I pick up some ancient artifacts and then book it toward the random waygate hidden in this pond. I'll skip ahead to Fort Faroth, since nothing all that interesting happens on the way there. I nab the second medallion piece, and then... fuck. After successfully reaching the Source Seal, my fate was at the mercy of the Rat Mafia. They denied my plea for surrender. With all the pieces in place, I begin to exsanguinate Grail for everything she's worth. Her kids were running and screaming all around the fucking house, none the wiser. When she was 1 blood proc from death, I popped the foot while waiting for my stamina to recharge. See how well I've optimized this shit? It's a great thing that all of Grail's offspring are in a suicide pact, because now I'm able to launder her life insurance money. It's a notoriously hefty sum that would get my civil assets forfeited if the police ever pulled my horse over, but I simply can't spend it yet. I ride past the church below and give no regard to the disintegratingly ill woman inside of it, but I do take the sacred tear beside her since it'll help for the remainder of the run. While on the way to Radahn's Great Bridge, I inevitably piss off this crow and nearly get run-endingly killed. I figured it was just quicker to do this while I was still in the area rather than having to warp to Faroth later. And looky there, only 17.5 minutes into the run. Even though this next part was far from the bulk of the run, it sure as fuck felt like it. Now we gotta go all the way from here at Gatefront to EG without dying. And do some stuff in Altus, whatever. In this most paramount of objectives, I naturally fail. What a monumental twist of fate. At least I had failed pretty early on, so I don't consider it serious enough to scrap the whole attempt. What I was supposed to do was cleanly descend this rock face made up of an almost unrealistic amount of flat surfaces, without breaking my knees 14 times in a row. Whoopsies. From there, it's a quick jaunt over to the Purified Ruins, which shoots us straight up to the halfway point of Liurnia instantly. I grab the Grace up here for even more reasons I'd rather not elaborate upon, and then unsurprisingly fail anyway. After unceremoniously reducing myself and my horse into a puddle of blood and viscera, I see the option to respawn at a Stake of Marika, and then take it for some reason, completely forgetting about my $96,000 trust fund like a stooge. Riding over to the gazebo eastward, I awaken at last by EG. and only then realize I have no money. After recovering my immense stacks, I purchase each of the somber stones and then accidentally tell this incorrigible wench that I want to be added to the tarnished group DM. So that was a huge waste of time. I planned to kill 2 birds with 1 stone later by doing the mandatory roundtable hold visit when the 3rd talisman pouch became available, but things haven't been going my way for the past 10 minutes already, so why would they start now? After wrapping up my affairs in the hold, I warp back to EG and cross this rocky crag by Caria Manor, quickly riding up past Vellum and to the Grand Lift of Dectus. I find it really funny that the sentinels by the door immediately give up once you're actually through it. I guess that I too would just figure that's now somebody else's problem if I was in that position. After dodging a series of absolutely heinous threats in the Lanedale battlegrounds, I activate this grace for later and then ride outside. I evade this entire stretch of the Maginot Line by simply walking behind it and then trot to these unmarked runes on the map where a somber 5 awaits me. With my rock collection really starting to take shape, it's about time I go claim the weapon that this entire run hinges on. Unbelievable quality scaling, buffable, innate blood loss. You know it, you love it. It's the Bloodhound's Fang. The fight with Darrowell actually goes dog shit this run, which is kind of appropriate. I would make a terrible animal control officer. You'll see me do things better later though, I promise. Despite clearly mustering all of my effort to somehow throw this fight, Darrowell does eventually fall. And now after some upgrades, we can dive into the real meat of the route and start going after some great runes. Haha, I actually lied. See that stupid look on your face? You were so excited, you fool. Since I was already near the Weeping Peninsula, I decided to first make a run for a few safety flask upgrades. This was overall only about a 4-minute detour that immensely increased my survivability. I'm too shitty to parry Draconic Tree Sentinel off a cliff, and then fight Malekith with a +0 flask. And hey, you know what? That's the point of this video, to showcase a more casual approach. Okay, now we can move on to Great Runes. I promise for real this time. Naturally, that begins with Margit. He is alive for maybe 30 seconds, which was really what all of this setup was for. You just wouldn't be able to experience the glory of this shit in a more rigid Dark Souls game. From there, the run through the main gate makes the trip to Godric an extremely short one. Assuming you don't get your organs ruptured and rearranged by 15 different explosive ballista projectiles, that is. I miraculously survive receiving acupuncture the size of my body, and once past that section, dodging the courtyard fellas and firebirds was easy enough. Save for some initial hiccups at the start, the battle with Godric goes immaculately. Even though I get battered around for a few seconds, not long after, he starts getting systematically dismantled like a Romanian highway. The bleed proc during the transition sets him up for a final Ash of War combo in Phase 2. His runes and remembrance go into more dexterity and health to make killing Radahn less stressful. Since I'd already gone to Altus, the Radahn Festival was in full swing, and the Waygate is available right next to that grace we got all the way near the start of the run. Thank you, past me. Radahn was one of my larger fears for this run, primarily because of his sheer damage output. There have been runs where I'm not underleveled and his downward cross chop still instantly drains my entire health bar. I don't usually summon NPCs or players at all, but I think the festival aspect of this fight justifies doing it over any other boss. I do admittedly need the assistance, and I suppose the goal is just to win in under 2 hours. As a bit of background for how we even got here, I've played through this game like 12 times and only recently became aware of the Waygate that takes you to the King's Realm ruins. Since I thought you needed to ride on foot to EG, I picked up the Academy key by Smaragd during my old route, and that is what resulted in me fighting Rennala as my second boss. But as I realize now, that was dumb. So this was my first time fighting Radahn under time pressure at a low level, in this new variation of the simple plan. And it shows! Whoa, does it show. That was, thankfully, the only death I had to Radahn, so I didn't consider it too run-ending or anything. The stake is right outside, and I really didn't feel like doing the entire setup stage of the run for the 3rd time in a row. So I dealt with it. The second attempt has a few similarly scary moments, but otherwise goes a lot more buttery smooth. The boys and I deliver a stagger to him right before the phase transition, leaving Radahn to perform his scripted meteor summon attack with only a 1/6 of his health bar left. A throw so fierce that it could tear through the stadium wall and decapitate an innocent passerby. And now, sadly, it is time for the Great Betrayal. I admittedly didn't even use the Ash of War on this weapon too much for the rest of the run. But hey, friend murder was probably still quicker than not having the talisman at all. Believe it or not, the next course of action is to kill the putrid avatar beside Fort Faroth, getting some more easy runes to aid in leveling up. Erdtree avatars are like the simplest motherfuckers in the whole game, and this one drops like 90,000 runes, so there's really no reason not to do it to increase my likelihood of surviving the rest of the run. Before spending my hit money and fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel, I make a quick run over to grab the Light Roll tier. Again, just another small detour for the sake of survivability. I would probably lose even more time later by dying to Malekith at level 80. The levels as of now have been going into a fair mix of health and damage. I plan to cap out my vigor around 30 and then just pump strength and dexterity for the rest of the run from there. Thankfully, this run, I did not relive the incident, managing to beat the Draconic Tree Sentinel on the first try. This is what real-life character growth looks like. This time, I had prepared accordingly by definitely not dying to the Putrid Avatar. This made me a much higher level than in my previous attempts. As you can imagine, my heart was like a fucking timpani this whole battle, and this is only the halfway point of the run, with much harder bosses to come at comparatively lower levels. Nonetheless, I was very relieved when it was finally over and I could enter Lindell. Since I accidentally warped to the round table earlier, I now have to return an unnecessary second time to get my talisman pouch from Enya. Joy. I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now, but you can skip the bulk of the level by just hopping across these rooftops and going directly down to the main street. For even more free runes, I decide to fight this avatar that floats down onto the road since he drops an easy 50k. It certainly doesn't go awful, and Golden Land certainly isn't the most annoying attack in video game history. Despite suffering immense skull fragmentations that will doubtlessly put me and my next of kin tens of thousands of dollars into debt, I kill him and then continue onward. From the Grace after climbing the dragon, there's a bit of a checklist we have to cover before fighting Illusion of my Father. First, I head up to the Colosseum and claim the Ritual Shield Talisman to prevent me from getting one-shot. I have the open talisman slot, after all. After that, I dive into the Fortified Manor. You can actually interact and open this door on the side, something I didn't know until a few months ago. This game has secrets inside of secrets sometimes. It's like a layer cake of bullshit. Behind is a few abductor virgins for some reason, and more importantly, a somber 6. A quick quit out deaggroes the contraptions, letting me leave in peace. Now equipped with a +6 weapon, Golden Godfrey gets cut into a julienne so fine you'd think a rat was controlling me as I played Elden Ring. He occasionally shatters my ankles into powder with a stomp attack, but otherwise the utterly inane quality scaling on the Bloodhound's Fang proves more than effective at ghost busting him. Right after that is the battle with Morgott, and it goes practically flawless. A beautiful stagger out of the sword rain sets him up for blood loss on the phase transition. This sword makes whoever is wielding it an unquestionable god. He died so quickly he didn't even get to finish his second phase monologue. I'm just gonna gloss over everything from here to the mountaintops because the world route and Forbidden Lands are the dictionary definition of uninteresting. The only important thing that happens all the way up to Frozen Lake is that I grab this somber 7 out of a gigantic, hilarious skull, and a somber 8 from this disgusting shit insect. On the other side of the lake I pick up another sacred tier to level my flasks, and then realize I don't have a somber 9. I warp back to Faroth, something I wanted to avoid, and then hastily steal one from this congressional meeting at the base of the Tower of Caelid. Crisis averted, though in a way that cost me quite a bit of time. Oh well, we'll make up for it by going after another easy 90k runes, which seems to be a recurring theme of the simple plan. We outsource that from Vike, who is a relatively easy fight all things considered. I nearly devour his entire health bar in just a few swings, but unfortunately he relapses on that red potion shit to get him through some dire times. After a bit more shenanigans, which in this case means whiffing Bloodhound's assault like 4 times, I finally deliver the coup de grace, and of course, steal his clothes. Nothing else really happens until the Fire Giant because the mountaintops are a barren, shitty, and lazy area, so I'll just jump right to that. I don't even grab the Sacred Tier by Okina for some reason. Bad planning, I guess. The first phase of the Fire Giant went extraordinary. The stars aligned and all that, solar eclipse overhead, Mayan calendar ending, biblical prognostication. All of it. He even staggered and everything. The second phase didn't go as well, as I figured it would probably be faster to just bank on getting a bleed proc by smacking his legs as much as possible, rather than inconsistently aiming for his hands. When he did actually stagger in the second phase, I got too greedy fishing for extra damage and missed the rye post, so that sucks. With enough consistent pressure, I do finally rupture his femoral artery and win the day on the very first try. Things are looking up for the run like a fucking telescope. If the last few bosses don't give too much resistance, then we'll be in the clear. Farum Azula is mostly unremarkable, as it's a pretty easy and straightforward area to just bolt through due to its legacy dungeon structure. There's no reason not to ignore pretty much every enemy. Hey, remember that Ritual Shield Talisman I picked up all the way back in Lindell? I didn't even fucking equip it. I also got the Fire Drake Talisman on the world route to help with the Fire Giant, and I didn't put that on either. I'm operating on levels that the psychiatric industry couldn't possibly comprehend. Using the runes to level strength and dexterity further, I jump on into the Godskin duo. This was another battle of high concern for the run, if only because of the level I was entering it at. Though in effect my damage was equivalent to an endgame character, my health wasn't, and because of that I felt pretty reliant on the ritual shield. It was entirely a matter of reducing the fight to a 1v1 as soon as possible. Even though the Godskins periodically respawn until the health bar depletes, they do so in a staggered enough window that it can be made a series of solo duels back to back to back to back. The second attempt is ultimately where I succeeded for this reason, and as soon as I killed the very first noble, I was assured that the battle was already won. They would have to pull some insane pagan occultist ritualistic shit to have any hope from here. And as I predict, it goes without a hitch. More levels into more quality stats. On the way to Malekith, I actually make a detour for the Dragon Crest Shield, because this is doubtlessly the fight I have been the most scared of the entire run. Behind the Storm Dragon is the Courtesy Somber 10 on your pillow for coming to Farum Azula, which officially caps out our weapons upgrade level. Malekith's first phase went about as beautifully as could be, as I would come to learn. It was an utter fluke how well it went, in fact. Naturally, as soon as this dog entered his flippy jump-aroundo 25 hits a second mode, shit started to hit the fan. I knew that if I could secure this bag, then things could be in the clear for the final 3 bosses, but alas, I choke and lose near the very end. That's a big cut of time. Malekith is doubtlessly the boss I am consistently the worst at, as far as casual play is concerned. I've said in the past that I only ever feel like I beat him, even on level, by accident. The first phase on the second attempt was atrocious by comparison to the previous. Rocks were embedded into my every orifice, cracks were running 20 feet deep into the foundation. It was a whole mess. The second phase actually went even better than last time. Stars began to twinkle across my eyes as I thought maybe I would be capable of turning this around. There was still about 20 minutes left before the deadline at this point. If I just don't screw up the last 4 seconds... And I died again. Alt F4'd, in fact, and put the game down for the rest of the day. The next morning, I loaded back in and had to wait in shame for my character to slowly die. That was, believe it or not, another 12-second waste of its own. I actually died 4 more times to Malekith, but most of them were pretty quick. I did, on the 7th overall attempt though, finish the job. Oh, fuck. Though 12 minutes still remained with only 3 bosses to go, I wasn't exactly teeming with faith or anything. Unless I first tried Gideon, Godfrey, and the Elden Beast, all the mistakes would build up into disappointing failure. But, I mean, fuck, it's not like Gideon would be the one to doom the run or anything.
I knew you'd come.
Okay, so here's some things we gotta not do. We can consider this a second list, an addendum to the simple plan. And by the way, that is also getting some updates. I remembered there is literally a free Somber 6 on the main path toward the Forbidden Lands from this beetle, so I don't need to waste time grabbing the one in Lanedale. I'm rather confident in my ability to kill Morgott and the illusion of his father at +5. Also, I kind of panicked when I needed a Somber 9 and ran all the way over to the Divine Tower of Caelid. There's actually one in a beetle right next to the Bestial Sanctum here, so that can be picked up on the way to Fort Ferroth near the very start of the run. It's easy, and we already pass it anyway. So the simple plan actually now looks like this, with a little sticky note attached to it that has all of our new bonus rules. Hopefully this will allow us to beat the run for real this time. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over anything that's basically the same and doesn't have anything funny happen. So yeah, I just kind of breezed through all the same initial setup steps. Except, of course, stopping for that Somber 9 on the way to Grail this time. I splinter her kneecaps into more pieces than there are stars in the universe and almost become a torrent victim outside of the Church of the Plague. I miraculously manage not to piss off any crows on the run down to the Great Bridge, nor die on the descent to Liurnia. Not that either of those things deserve an insane amount of praise, I guess. I chickened out of the freefall by the Academy and decided to just jump down from lower. Because once this happens, you really don't have any faith anymore. From here, things continue on as normal, except this time I find a different rune arc I didn't know about right outside of Dectus. Very strange. With the Somber 5 from that Altus runes in hand, it's time for Darrowil again. The battle actually goes stupendously. He was a lot more agreeable and even let me bisect him in half with a single blow. Now we can really start killing again. I don't think a more perfect battle with Margit could have ever occurred, really. Everything aligned for me to obliterate him using just 2 Ashes of War and a Rye Post with very little resistance. I only get impaled by ballistas 4 times on the way up to Godric. The first phase with Godric was fairly sloppy. Not really sure why. Maybe I just suck. But the second phase, I think, went a lot better than that of the previous run. I don't actually know, nor do I really care. A Rye Post, as can be expected, sets him up for the kill too. It did like 30% of his health bar. Before fighting Radahn, I cashed into the Weeping Peninsula for 3 additional Sacred Tears. I didn't suddenly become this guy overnight. Radahn was like, alright. With the whole squad beating down on him on the second attempt, he staggers right before he would enter phase 2, which allows for some monstrous damage to be delivered right to his sickly, monumental body. Once he gets back from directly asking the horoscope how fucked he is, he once again gets finished off during the Meteor Conjuration attack. Without too much hassle, Radahn is dead. You might not have noticed it immediately, but I just fucked up. Bad. This is worse than dying to Radahn. On prior attempts, I had made a habit of quitting out after beating Radahn to save time by instantly setting up for the cutscene. But crucially, I never received the pop-up for his Great Rune nor his Remembrance before quitting. Radahn was still alive, and the time spent beating him was already accounted for and now wasted. It thankfully only takes one more that goes just as well as the previous to bring him down for real though. Despite all of the gains we had made from not failing in various past areas, that might have just set us back and then some. I actually don't die to the Putrid Avatar this playthrough and claim the Light Roll tier. It was nighttime, so I was invaded by the Soul Drinker. I figure if I play well enough, I shouldn't need to go back and waste time equipping that tier before the Draconic Tree Sentinel. The fight with him this time around started off extremely promising. I think it was actually the fact that I was light rolling that was fucking with my usual muscle memory on the past attempts. In the second phase, my spontaneous burst of luck dries up and he begins giving me an unwilling rhinoplasty free of charge using his Goliath Clawhammer. But it wasn't too much trouble. Another first try boss. I claim my 3rd talisman slot from Enya, get my vertebrae scattered like some 52 pickup shit by an inanimate object, and decimate the avatar without issue. You know, each attempt that has made it this far, I've wondered if pissing off that gargoyle for the golden seed has been worth it, but I don't have a good history with those guys. After grabbing the Ritual Shield Talisman, I make sure that I equip it this time after I load back into the game. We cut out the Fortified Manor run for the Somber 6 because I'm just that good now, so it's a straight run up to Godfrey past the entire Environmental Protection Agency. Being down an upgrade level for this fight put me at literally no detriment whatsoever. He still crumples quicker than the Titan's Submersible, even at only +5. At least, that becomes the case once I stop fighting him with my head inside of my ass around the halfway point of his health bar. So yeah, pretty easy fight overall. The battle with Morgoth this time around sings a different tune though. He actually kills me, because I have severe brain damage or something. More trading happened during this fight than occurred on the Silk Road for the entire 1700 years it was active, and also a lot of whiffing, as if I think my sword is like a foot longer than it is. In the second phase, though, Bloodhound's assault kind of ultra-fucks him up. Your sacrifice wasn't in vain, Alexander. But yeah, he dies. Obviously after annoyingly killing me once, though. As much as I'd love to show as much sped up footage of me just practicing pedestrianism throughout this entire continent, as I did in the previous run, I need to get this video out before the DLC drops. I can't factor Mesmer and whatever other nightmarish Elder spawn decide to crash the party into this fucked up equation too. This is our Somber 6 for the run now, by the way. I don't know how I didn't think of this before. This is literally the mandatory path through the game with no necessary detour. In the Forbidden Lands, I ride past the Somber 7 like an idiot, and have to double back after seeing the road lift come into view. So that was less than efficient. I dodged the Arsonist convention, right across the bridge, grabbed the Somber 8, blah blah, who cares. Since I had already found my own Somber 9 a lot earlier that didn't involve mingling with congressional blood money, I was already a lot more prepared to take on Vike this time around. I guess the fight went better. If better means faster, then it didn't. The initial beatdown wasn't nearly as succinct this time. At least I don't look like as much of a dumbass though. The first phase of the Fire Giant once again goes extremely well. When I'm not getting turned into particles of dust by his Last Supper dinner plate, I'm shaving his legs with a rusty blade and delivering righteous fury to his fragile ankle bones. I employ the same strategy as the previous run for the second phase, just kind of pursuing him around the arena and trying to perforate his varicose veins. Another first try, and at this pace, the bag is so secure that you could call it— oh hey look, that's another Alt F4. 3-minute fight, by the way. Wow, am I really starting to hate all of this bullshit. I do thankfully claim victory on the attempt right after, with a really stylish riposte kill. I am purposefully leaving the amount of time we have left ambiguous, by the way, for suspense or whatever. But needless to say, considering you can see the video time, we're looking pretty good. I guess since we have the time, as I mindlessly dart through Fair Missoula, I can tell y'all just a bit more about the history of this whole thing. This is the third time that the run has seen Fair Missoula, and the second time along the route that does Radon. The time I made it here on the Renala route was just the trial attempt to even figure out a goal to beat, which became 2 hours. Anyway, here we are at the Godskin duo again. The first fight appears promising, as I weave through attacks with a questionable mixing of skill and luck. Then the cameraman decides that shedding excruciating detail upon every minor lump and crack in that pillar is more important than my character. The second attempt begins looking like another failure, as I devour fireballs like it's my job. But this time around I do kill one of them, which means I've basically already won. Also, what a shitty name to actually tack onto a boss health bar. They really should have called it something less immersion breaking. I get both the Dragon Crest +2 and the Somber 10. Upgrading my weapon before the final gauntlet of bosses, it's time to again plunge into the fight with Malakath. I could tell from almost the very start of the attempt that this probably wasn't going to be the one where I kill him. Just about every piece of debris that so much as leaves the floor from his footsteps collides with my body and takes a wrecking ball to the majority of my health bar. That doesn't change in the second phase either, and I eventually meet my maker. That stupid fucking sword plunge explosion has killed me so many times across all of these runs. The second attempt, though, shows so much more promise right from the start. If you ignore the fact that I literally can't dodge, I realize that, oh yeah, I have the Bloodhound's Fang and the Alexander Shard. It doesn't take very long for him to start tweaking and enter phase 2. This bastard cocaine wolf finally keeps his feet firmly planted on the ground long enough for me to deliver a stagger, which sets up for his rapid demise. After the obnoxiously barren run through the Ashen Capital, it's about time we got revenge and shoved this Poindexter into the Erdtree burial locker. I finally get to talk about something new. Gideon is an annoying little pox on my flesh that always manages to survive with 1 health and then guzzle his Estus flask. Even on that previous run I showed where he kicked my ass, he lived with 1 health on the first attempt. And even though I made sure to level up this time, he did it again. At least he didn't kill me at all this time around, and I can now finally move on to the last 2 battles of the game. This is the first time one of these playthroughs has even made it to Godfrey, but I reserved confidence. This is one of my favorite battles in the game, and I pride myself in being at least pretty okay at it. It wouldn't be another loving instance of dramatic irony in this video though if he didn't end up killing me once anyway. What a video game. Godfrey powderizes my skeleton just a little bit less the second time around, with a practically flawless first phase. I usually don't trust that I have the time to commit to the full combo on this Ash of War, but I really should have been using even just the first strike throughout the run. I do try to express a bit more caution in the second phase, and stick primarily to light attacking him in his very brief periods of downtime. I get a boatload of damage in for free during his scripted stop move, and then put way too much faith into the notion that his Senator Armstrong Magma Blast won't insta-kill me. Thankfully, that faith wasn't misplaced, and the way to the final boss is open. Radagon is a fight that I notoriously overestimate. I do a lot of co-op where I put my summon sign down, and this guy's spreading AoEs are a nightmare to time dodging when he isn't actually targeting you with them. But solo, I find him very easy. My main fear of this whole finale, though, was how much of an endurance test it is. At my somewhat low level and subpar flask count, I was more worried about how dragged on the Elden Beast side of things would be. Radagon draws out the end of the battle a fair bit, but after he uses his grab, it leaves him open enough to finish the job. Fighting the Elden Beast is a spin of every machine in the goddamn casino because he has about 20 attacks and most of them are unfavorable. He will spontaneously choose to stay close or run away. He will either take a minute and a half or 5 minutes to kill. I was very afraid of dying here for that reason, something that you'll come to understand when you see the final time. After the One Ring attack, he thankfully chooses to stay close to me and use some of his melee moves. The pressure I was able to apply because of that cemented what I believe is the reason that I beat this run. I staggered him out of the Elden Stars cast, and therefore could deliver even more pain without having to run away. Rather than cast his triple rings attack following the riposte, he again rolls into doing melee attacks. With a healthy dose of luck on my side, the Elden Beast falls and the day is won. Before interacting with Marika and ending the game, I checked the time. About 1 hour and 55 minutes. So yes, I had beaten Elden Ring in less than 2 hours. So that was a fun little challenge. Hope you enjoyed the video. This one took an extremely long time to put together, both as far as footage collection goes, and also because I tried to go a little bit more elaborate on the editing side of things. I really wanted to make a production out of this. Sorry that I broke my promise and didn't put out any PvP videos while I was working on this. I had really wanted to get this out before the DLC, because as soon as that drops, it's all I'm gonna spend, like, the next week doing. And I didn't want to leave you guys high and dry for too long. Who knows what'll happen from here. I'll probably make some kind of humorous video out of my blind experience with the DLC. And all those new items will really expand the potential for cosplay PvP builds. I hope. So yeah, bright things on the horizon maybe. Alright. Thanks for watching.